35 families gathered together for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services in a small room on the second floor of 5802 Forbes Street in the Orpheum Theater in September 1917. By the time Simchat Torah came around in October, the same room held 60 families. November of 1917, a permanent organization known as the Squirrel Hill Congregation was formed, its purpose being to hold dances and entertainment through which money raised would allow the members to rent a permanent home. The first unanimously elected officers included Meyer Ossoff, president, M.J. Mullins, vice president, and Abe Kaplan, secretary. Sisterhood was formally organized in December with Mrs. Abe Kaplan as president. Joint meetings of the congregation and the Ladies' Auxiliary were held to discuss the opening of the Hebrew School. The school opened at Colfax School in July 1919. That same month, the name Beth Shalom was formally adopted. March 18th, 1922. Ground is broken for the new building on the corner of Shady Avenue and Beacon Street. June 18th. The laying of the cornerstone of the community building was done. The first bar mitzvah was celebrated before the formal dedication on Sunday afternoon, September 22nd. Many firsts followed. The first marriage ceremony, November 1923. First Purim masquerade, March 1924. First congregational picnic, July 1924. November 2nd, 1924, Rabbi Goodman A. Rose was formally installed as rabbi. Somber events also happened, as the agreement was made to purchase 32 acres in Shaler Township for the cemetery, followed by the first burial in January 1926, and the first funeral service in the synagogue in July 1927. Beth Shalom continued to grow. On November 17, 1929, groundbreaking exercises were held for the new synagogue building adjoining the initial building. December 21, 1930, the cornerstone for the new synagogue was laid, which was formally dedicated on Sunday afternoon, July 26, 1931. Celebrations such as community sederim, Purim and Thanksgiving dances, Hanukkah affairs, sisterhood mother-daughter banquets, and anniversary celebrations filled the 1930s and 40s. The position of executive secretary was created in 1941 to take over all cemetery and congregational affairs on a full-time basis, and Abe Kaplan was elected to fill that office. The synagogue continued to grow, and by 1944, Beth Shalom took over the complete operation of its own school, which was no longer connected with the Hebrew Institute. During the 1950s, the need to expand, to increase the membership base, to enlarge and improve the school, to provide better facilities for the auxiliaries, and to modernize the structure was felt by both the leaders and general membership. In 1963, Rabbi Moshe V. Goldblum was chosen to be the spiritual leader, along with Cantor Moshe Tabe, elected cantor of the congregation. Rabbi Goldblum held his position until 1987. Completing the religious staff were Rabbi Morris Sklar, trainer of the Bar Mitzvah youth, and Reverend Jacob E. Lehman, ritual director. By the time the 50th anniversary was celebrated in 1967, it became apparent that once more larger facilities were needed. Plans for a new building were approved in September 1967. This included a new sanctuary, a smaller chapel, a children's and an adult library, a new school facility, youth lounge, gift shop, a kosher kitchen, and the magnificent Samuel and Minnie Hyman ballroom. A cornerstone ceremony was held with the children of Mr. and Mrs. Saul Elenoff, placing the stone in its proper position on October 12, 1969, for the Rose Hyman Kaufman Community Building. The third major expansion was completed in 1970. 1987 was the 70th anniversary of our congregation and also the beginning of the tenure of Rabbi Stephen E. Steindel as our senior rabbi, with his formal installation on May 3, 1987. In June of 1989, Rabbi Morris Sklar was honored for his 26 years of faithful service to the congregation. He had trained 800 children for their bar or bat mitzvah during his tenure. A testimonial dinner was held in his honor. After the fire of October 8, 1996, there was remodeling, expansion, dedication of the new Faye Rubenstein Weiss Sanctuary, and addition of a special preschool wing. At that time, we also dedicated our Milton and Sarita Eisner Commons and Homestead Hebrew Chapel, as well as creating a resource center for the community in our Stoffman Library and a place for our youth with the addition of the Sheer Youth Lounge. The Joint Jewish Education Program began in 2012 in collaboration with Beth Shalom congregation and provides innovative experiential learning opportunities for students in kindergarten through 7th grade. In 2006, Rabbi Michael Warbo joined the congregation as the assistant rabbi. Rabbi Steindel's 23-year leadership ended in 2009, and Rabbi Warbo remained head clergy until 2014. Interim Rabbi Amy Levin guided us to Rabbi Seth Adelson, whose leadership began in August 2015. Over the past 100 years, Congregation Beth Shalom has become a place for all to gather. It strives to be responsive to the needs of the congregants and community. A true sense of responsibility is guided by Tikkun Olam, which extends to social action programs and social services by providing a home for all, while serving the community with a full life cycle of services. The original 35 families would have been challenged to envision the development of the synagogue that has shaped and affected so many lives in the Pittsburgh Jewish community. The hope is that they would be proud of the high standards that have been maintained over the past 100 years at Congregation Beth Shalom.
Shalom. Having had the privilege of serving as your rabbi for almost a quarter of a century, I have many fond memories, not only of the spiritual occasions and significant events of all those years, but also my unique relationship with the presidents who provided the essential lay leadership that helped our congregation be so strong, so proud, and so successful as an exemplar of conservative Judaism. No rabbi or professional staff could have succeeded without their support, their understanding, and their friendship. For that, Lisa and I are eternally grateful. As we celebrate our centennial anniversary, it is surely a special pleasure for you and for me, and for members who never knew them, to be able to see the faces and hear the voices of our past presidents. Let us reflect together how much each one of them contributed as we share the memories and the legacies of the years each one served as president of our beloved congregation, Beth Shalom.
As president, you spend a lot of time here in the synagogue. You're at meetings, you're here every Shabbat, in holidays, and it got to be such that my best friend started calling me Connie Beth because I have no official middle name, and so that became my name during my presidency, Connie Beth.
One of the benefits and one of the great things about being president was actually getting to know different people, was actually getting to working with people through their life cycle events, whether they were good ones or bad ones, but it was really an honor to be able to do that.
When I was elected president at that same meeting, the congregation voted to have women open the Ark. This was a big deal at the time in Beth Shalom. Harriet Crewman and I, being that she was the first woman president, we opened the Ark together. And that's a moment that I'll never forget.
In 1983, my mother passed away, and I started coming to the Minions each and every morning, which I still do today. And I guess when I was here every morning, I sat down and talked to a mirror and kibitzed with some of the people in the office. And eventually, I was elected president in 1985. And stayed for 3 years. And as I said before, I loved every minute of it except when I got aggravated.
We have 5 generations of our family in the synagogue. My grandmother was a member of Cantor Tabé's women's choir. My mother was an activist up here at Beth Shalom. I was president. My son-in-law now is on the executive committee, and I have 2 grandchildren in the nursery school. So we have 4 living generations in the synagogue. So how did I get started? It just was a natural.
I grew up at Beth Shalom, went to, was part of the USY. That was a big part of my activities when I was young. Used to play basketball in the gym. I had a lot of very good close friends of mine through Beth Shalom. Went to Camp Ramah. Got involved with Camp Ramah, went to Camp Ramah and enjoyed the experience there for many years. Loved it and was bar mitzvahed here.
I was bar mitzvah here.
Okay.
I went to Hebrew school here. My kids were bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah here. My daughter was married here. I sit in the same seats that my parents sat in for the high holidays.
So your parents were members too?
Sure.
Well, I will tell you that my involvement with Beth Shalom goes back a long, long way. My parents were married here. I think Rabbi Rose performed that ceremony in 1936. We lived in Coriopolis until 1952. We moved to the city and we joined Beth Shalom.
My husband Jules and I joined Beth Shalom in 1961, though his family had been members much further back than that. I became active almost immediately at Beth Shalom, first in the sisterhood and then in the congregation.
My grandfather would come to shul every Friday and Saturday. He would sing louder. He would sit in the front row, sing louder than the cantor and the rabbi. Not quite on tune, but he would do it anyway. But I can remember actually coming to shul with him in the old Buick Friday nights, and I really came for the sheet cake, but it was nice to come anyway, though.
I think around 1971, I was on the executive committee, and I was the first female. So at that time, at the high holidays following that, our then president, Sam Shearer, a very dear man, I guess didn't quite know what to say the first time he addressed a congregation at the high holidays, and he said, well, I guess you know, we have a woman on the executive committee now, and at least she's cleaned up the language at the executive committee meetings.
I have chaired the 80th anniversary. I was president during the 85th anniversary, and I chaired the 90th anniversary. So very involved and have been, as you probably know, chaired many, many events, particularly with Julian Elbling. He and I are good buddies, and we have chaired. Also, I did chair the, after the fire, we had a whole big dedication weekend, and I was the overall chair of the dedication.
I was known 20 years ago as the fire president. My good friend, the previous past president, Harvey Robbins, handed me the key to the building, and a month after he handed me a key to the building, the two of us were driving up here. The building was on fire. What an experience that was.
The tragedy of the fire right after my becoming the past president, Julian, and I worked very hard seeing to the rebuilding program, etc. The city of Pittsburgh, Bob O'Connor, could not have been nicer at those times, making available the city fire people and the building inspection, allowing us some early use of part of the synagogue with the necessary fire and such protection. And the same thing, arranging that the whole community came to our aid. We were able to use Sacred Heart for our preschool. The church people were so nice and afforded us, and the city same time granting us occupancy at Sacred Heart for our kids. And the other congregations and such just came to our aid and offered their facilities, and we were able to rebuild in 2 years, 2.5 years.
You know, it is said that, you know, when you give of yourself and you do things from your heart, that you receive more than you give. And that's the way I feel about my presidency and my life at Beth Shalom.
And so Beth Shalom became my family, and they became really my community to be involved with. And so with sisterhood experiences, and then also teaching sisterhood aerobics, which is now Latin cardio, and I'm still doing that 13 years later. So there have been a lot of ways to be involved and have been very special.
I think the challenge for Pittsburgh, just like so many other places that we've lived, is how does one not just physically bridge the gap of bridges, you know, from the North Hills to the South Hills and into the city, but how do we recognize that if we're going to continue to be sustainable and strong, we have to engage people of all backgrounds and strive to bring diversity into our community and recognize that diversity is a strength, and that we have to create opportunities for young people to find their place within our community and to support those young people who are coming into the community.
Maybe it's because I grew up as the youngest, I only have one sister, but I was the youngest child, and a lot of older aunts and grandparents, and was always around the older population. So I enjoy seeing the younger population and the youth and the activity. And the happiest day is when the carpet is a mess and it needs vacuumed and there's crackers and candy wrappers all over the place. That means that we won and we were used. I don't want to end the service cleaner than we got there because no one was there. I want the maintenance staff to know we had people in the building.
The message perhaps of my presidency that I would share with people is the fact that we learned by collaborating with others, we were stronger together. And by collaborating with others, and we learned we had to communicate openly, we had to experience transparency in our congregation. We could then work to solve problems and meet challenges head on, and then we could be successful at creating and forging new paths and new bridges that would lead to a sustainable future for Congregation Beth Shalom.
I went out of office. We celebrated in the end of that year our 75th anniversary. So now we're coming up on the 100th, and I'm glad I'm here.
I've been a member here now 24 years, although I'm not a real Pittsburgher and never will be because my grandparents were not born here. But I have ingratiated myself as best I can and have lots of good friends. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I hope it continues for many, many years. I was at my aunt's 100th birthday party this weekend. And what I said to her is, till 120. And that's what we hope as well.
Rabbi, I'm glad we're having the opportunity to talk about the future here at Beth Shalom because it is bright and has changed since you've come here, and we now have a vision of what we want to do. So, I thought it would be a nice opportunity for us to talk about that, about the vision that you see for Beth Shalom, and maybe you can expound a little bit on that just in general. We can talk about specifics as we go.
Okay, so we have here a legacy institution that is already 100 years old, which is really a wonderful thing to celebrate. What we are looking forward to the future is making sure that we have a sustainable model, that we make sure that this legacy institution continues into our next 100 years and maybe the 100 years after that, by rethinking what it is that we do, what we offer, and finding new ways to engage more people, bringing more people into the Beth Shalom community, and to make sure that we offer more entry points for all that we do, especially considering the major elements of community connection and Kedusha that we offer. These are themes that we've been talking about now, and they are now officially part of our mission statement here at Beth Shalom.
And it's interesting because one of the things that we've seen, not only here at Beth Shalom, but throughout the community, is people not having a reason to come to the shul, to come to the synagogue, other than if you're a tefillah person, someone who wants to daven, and you come for services. But what's been happening is people are saying, why should I come to the synagogue? What is it that the synagogue is going to give me? What value am I going to get out of it? And that's what we're trying to do here, is to provide that value.
So synagogues traditionally were created around the need for services, right? You had a group of Jews, you had a need for a place to be able to have services and a Sefer Torah and somebody to organize it and read, whatever, all of those things. And Beth Shalom has been offering that now for, as I said, a century. In order to engage younger people, we have to make sure that we are offering services that they're going to want to come into the building for. Now, we have somewhat near 600 families, and many of them, of course, do take advantage of our services on a regular basis. We have morning and evening services here every single day of the year. But we also have to consider other aspects of programming, things that we can do as a community. And that's where we emphasize the kehillah aspect of what we do, the community aspect of what we do. And so that would include, for example, what we're working on is the Derech program, a vision for the future, that includes 5 particular entry points, portals of entry. And those are limud, Jewish learning, something which has come to the fore in recent years as being much more popular than it used to be. Talmud study, Mishnah, Midrash, all of that kind of stuff. Finding ways to make those ancient texts come alive for us today. Also, the Chesed portal, that is an opportunity to do good works for the people around us, not just the standard items like giving to charities and visiting those who are ill, but also to make sure that we are very involved with the Squirrel Hill Food Pantry, for example, finding other ways to be involved in our community that are to the benefit of the community, to elevate that communal involvement. Also, the mindfulness portal, the understanding that we have the opportunity to think a little differently about what we do in terms of ritual.
And that's also where many people don't have the same approach to tefillah as in the past, and the mindfulness, the spirituality. Some people will get that spirituality from being out in nature and being able to walk in nature, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That is correct, and we want to make sure that we are offering, in addition to our regular services, we want to make sure that we offer options for people who would like to access their Jewish spirituality in a different way. So hence the need for that portal. We'll also be talking about culture. We hope that we'll be able to feature talks by authors and academics, and perhaps a film series, items like that, concerts. We have a great space where we could really have quite a huge concert of food. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. We like food. So that's the 4th portal, and then the 5th would be Israel. And of course, we want to have a stepped up involvement with our, in addition to our partnership with Carmel Misgav region, in northern Israel, but also to focus on Israeli culture and Israeli and interaction with Israelis. We are right now thinking about a mission to Israel in 2018. We're talking about lectures and music and dance programs of an Israeli nature and so forth.
So that's the Derech program, but interestingly, it's not just for Beth Shalom.
That is correct.
It's geared to the community-wide. We want to bring people into Beth Shalom for reasons they don't have to be members here. They can come and enjoy and take advantage of what we can offer to them.
So while the past has often divided Jewish communities according to where you belong to synagogue, we want to think beyond that. We want to think about making Beth Shalom a communal center for the entire Pittsburgh Jewish community. And to make sure that everybody is understood to be welcome here. If we want to invite more people into this community and secure our future as a sustainable institution, we have to make sure that we're thinking not just about the people who come in through the front door looking for services, but we have to think of all the different ways that we can bring more people in and invite them to be a part of our community.
Right, and that is good for the Jewish community here in Pittsburgh, Squirrel Hill in particular, because it'll get more people wanting to be in a synagogue, whether it be Beth Shalom or another synagogue. There'll be reasons for them to say, we need a synagogue, because synagogues are extremely important to the Jewish community, have been in the past, and they will continue to be going forward.
That is correct. And as one of the centerpieces of the Squirrel Hill community in terms of the offerings of synagogue, we hope to continue playing that role of being that communal center and to think more broadly, to invite more people in.